Hello, everyone. Hannah and I did our lesson on car collisions, and we chose fifth grade. And so before I play Hannah's video, I just wanted to go over our lesson plan to kind of give everyone like a short synopsis of the UDLs that we added in. Um, so in our introduction, we started with having the kids do a kinesthetic approach. So they would rub their hands together, which creates energy. And then we would ask the students a question. And then we showed them a video of a student kicking a soccer ball. And then we would ask them the same questions. And then they broke into think, pair, shares. And then each student would be tiered appropriately. Um, and then in their pairs, they, wrote stuff down, drew pictures. Then they watched another video. They kind of did the same steps again. And then for our lab, I go over it in the actual lab with Hannah, doing the lab, kind of some of our UDL approaches. But pretty much, students are tiered. Teacher frequently checks in. Each material can be changed depending on availability in the child's physical ability. So if a child has low fine motor skills, we can make the car bigger. If a child's working on their motor skills, we can make it smaller, all of that good stuff. And then the lab report is all digital, so the kids can use speech to text or text to speech. And they are given sentence starters, and they're giving extra time on their lab report to complete it as homework. And then the wrap up of the lab would just be, watching another video of this one includes car crashes. They're provided a guided note sheet, which will be able to use in their CER paper. They also are given a brain pop exercise to do, which will help them in their CER paper, which gives them another visual approach. And again, we're going to provide sentence starters, word banks, and even examples for their CER. So now I will play the video.
So in our class already, we've been talking about car collisions, about the safety features that cars have, and how energy is transferred during a collision. So now we're going to take some time to do the lab experiment. I have all of the materials next to me. I will show you what happens during each, but you should also be doing the experiment on your own to see if you get different results than me, and you should be recording it on your lab sheet. So on your lab sheet, there's a list of all of the objects, and then you should be listing 2 to 3 details about what happens, so what you see, what you hear, anything else that you notice during the collision. So I have all of my objects next to me. I have an empty box, I have a full tissue box, I have a cup, I have a pillow, and I have a book, and then I obviously have the car to go with it. If you're doing this at home and you don't have exactly the same materials, that's fine. Just try to find something that's similar. So maybe instead of using a pillow, you could use a stuffed animal because they would have a similar property to the pillow and be squishy, which is why we're looking at it. So I'm gonna move my camera down so that you can see me and see what happens during the experiment. So I'm gonna start first with the book because it's right next to me. So this is a pretty big book. It's a little bit heavy. If you have one that's a hardcover book, that might be a good option, or if you have one that's just about the same size as mine is. And then I have my car. So I'm not going to touch anything. I'm just going to move my car back and see what happens. So we want it to be about 6 inches away so that our experiment is consistent. So I'm just going to push it, see what happens. So I noticed that the book didn't move. The car didn't move at all either. That's great. That's our first trial. You should be doing each trial probably 1 or 2 times, at least two to 3 times, just to make sure that you are seeing what happens during the experiment and getting the most accurate results. This will also help you filling in the details on your lab report. So I'm going to try a different object. I have a cup now. If you don't have a paper cup like mine, you could use a plastic one that you throw out, You could also just use a regular plastic cup that you have. Please don't use a glass one so it doesn't break when you hit it, but something that's either paper or plastic would be perfect. So again, I'm going to make sure it's about 6 inches away, and I'm going to push. Let me do that again since it didn't hit. So this time I noticed that the cup moved when the car collided with it, and the car also moved with the cup while it was pushing it. So that can go on to our lab experiment, or our lab report. So now I'm going to try a tissue box. My tissue box is probably about 75% full. If you have one that's brand new, that works fine too. Just make sure that it has some weight to it. If you don't have a tissue box, you could use a regular box with some heavier objects put inside of it. So like if you wanted to put maybe some other toys in it or something like that, that would work perfect. So I'm going to push my car back again. We're going to try to get about 6 inches, and I'm going to push it towards the box. Again, I noticed that the box moved forward, or moved to my right, and the car hit the box and then moved to the left and went backwards. So now I'm going to try my other object, same thing. I have an empty box here. It's a little bit too big, so I would suggest using one that's smaller. Push it, and it didn't move because I got stuck on something, but in reality, it should be moving back slightly. Let me just move something so that we can try that again. So again, I have my box, and I have my car that you can't really see off, but it's off the side. Push, and the box stayed pretty firm because this is a pretty heavy-duty box, so that can go on your lab report. And then we have our last object, which is a pillow. So let's see what happens when I push the car into the pillow. Pillow didn't move. The car bounced off of the pillow, but ended up back in the same position from where the collision was. So you can do this. I would suggest doing them at least 2 times, if not more, so that you can get the most accurate results for your lab report. Again, if you don't have the exact same objects as me, try to use different ones. So once you fill out your lab report, you'll be writing in your observations on the first part of the page, and then on the next page, there's a few questions for you to answer and a drawing for you to do. Please answer these questions in complete sentences in TTQA, since that's something that we've been working on this year. And then if you have more time left, there's an extension activity where you can combine 2 of the objects that we used and decide you need to make it meet the certain criteria that are on there. So please tell me which object you choose and why you chose them. And then another extension activity, if you have more time after you do the first one, is to try using different objects in your house. Again, think about objects that won't break when they get collided with, and think about things that are relatively small. You don't want to use something that's big, and you also don't want to use something that's expensive in case it does break. Please check with your parents first before you borrow something, but other than that, you should be learning about car collisions today in our lab and be taking some good notes on your lab report.